Hello, I'm Don Moores, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. The annual legislative breakfast of the Great Committee for Montgomery, one of our top organizations in the county, again provided an informative program that unofficially started the Maryland General Assembly's 2019 session. There were politicians there, followed by a political journalism discussion from some of the top journalists around the Washington area. Linna Barnes, associate producer of this show, Montgomery Week in Review, was there. She's going to report. With new members comprising both the Board of Education and the County Council, together with a brand new county executive. There's a lot of change in Montgomery County government. Newcomers will be finding their ways, or trying to find out how they can mesh with some of the existing old-timers who are reelected to their positions. Fred Evans, who comments regularly on the show for education as well as in politics, will share some of his thoughts on these events. Under the umbrella of Every Mind, again, just like Committee for Montgomery, a great local organization, Serving Together has been supporting veterans and their families throughout Montgomery County and Northern Virginia and beyond for over 7 years. Julie Riggs, manager at Serving Together, is going to tell us about the program as well as an exciting new national partnership to help veterans get through the many chaotic systems. With gift-giving season upon us, people who can least afford it are often most at risk for falling for promises of using low or no interest rates that promises again to increase their spending and make the season even more wary. It's not merry, or more merry, I should say. It's not merry that they should be, it's really wary is what they need to be. Mariana Cordier, local attorney, has the warning for all of us. Linna Barnes.
Hi, Don.
I was there with you this morning.
You were.
And
I saw you there.
Committee for Montgomery, great organization. The annual breakfast in December really is the preview of what we should be expecting ahead in Annapolis.
Exactly. It really does highlight what are going to be the issues. And again, this year it did that. Transportation, spending on education, public health, what the Maryland Obamacare is going to be, what changes there might be. So all of those issues came up. So it was a really great time to learn what's going to happen in Annapolis in a month.
So a lot of discussion, a lot of the sort of policy issues, looking ahead, we've got this Republican governor, first time reelected as governor. He's got a veto. I mean, the Democrats have a veto-proof majority in both the House and the Senate. A lot, though, coming back, transportation, widening of the Beltway or widening 270. Will that happen?
Well, there are lots of things. One of the things I want to point out, which is interesting, is for many of the past years, the governor-elect, or the governor who's succeeding himself, has come and spoken after
We remember that Governor Hogan came 4 years ago.
Came 4 years ago.
First time many of us ever saw him.
Ehrlich came, Glendenning, O'Malley, all of them came. And they came for when they won a second term. Not all of them did. One thing about Hogan, he is the first Republican re-elected governor in 60 years.
60 years, that's right.
60 years. So it makes it interesting. And he did not come. But he's not, in many ways, he's not the most popular person in Montgomery County, if only because of his ideas about widening 270 and widening the Beltway.
We've
But
been talking.
there's no room to widen.
Yeah.
You can widen, but that means condemning a whole lot of homes.
That's it.
And
That's right.
through some really, really nice neighborhoods, and it's going to be kind of weighing, the convenience of having more lanes. When is it ever
the Beltway,
going to be enough?
The Beltway is the most difficult. For one thing, you've got Holy Cross Hospital sitting right there on the edge. That you can't,
many homes, too.
And then many homes too, but you've got this enormous business. So the Beltway is almost impossible from Wisconsin to New Hampshire Avenue to widen. So that's pretty much off the table. Talked about double-decking it. Now,
I think that what they need to consider is up county putting the bridge between Maryland and Virginia to take that
goodness,
traffic.
Mariana.
I know it's revolutionary to say that, but I mean it makes sense because
As opposed to White's Ferry?
well, right.
But I thought one of the really interesting points, and I think it must have been Bruce DuPoit, one of the reporters, or I don't know who it was, but talking about you've got to look at the choke points.
Right.
And the American Legion Bridge
those-
is causing the
That was the
back.
county executive. That was Mark Elrich
That
talked
Mark
about
said-
that, and we
Right.
start with the bridge and then move on. And Mariana, interesting point. But what the concerns about going through our protected lands up there, the ag reserve is what you're talking about. When developers talk about, will destroy probably the greatest heritage this county has. And
But-
we do
all right,
that,
But
and
there
we
may
never,
be,
we
but there
never
may
get
be
it back.
ways to do it in such a way that it's not as impactful. But no matter what you do, you have to think about the flow of people.
Right.
You know, and the issues that we're having in the state is that we have grown. We have become more diverse. We have people going all the way from Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C., to Virginia. And as you said, the choke points are usually the bridges and the
So we get
spurs.
through those bridges.
So the bridges.
interesting.
But that was just one thing, the
We've
transportation.
got
I
a
mean,
minute, but let's talk real quick about the education. Talking about that the budget will have to go up by billions, and again, we've got just less than a minute.
no, I was going to say, well, that's it. One of the things is putting Montgomery County first. That really is what a lot of the talk was about. Will this new group of legislators, I think there are 10 new
Let me stop you there. Did you find it odd that not one of the new legislators was there? Instead, they were being wined and dined by people around the state.
Did they
to
get the
look at
memo?
their stuff instead of looking at Montgomery County?
Well,
Did you
yes,
find that?
they
I found
were
that
on-
odd.
there was just new delegates. All the new delegates were on a bus tour of
Rather
the
than being
state.
with Montgomery County and Montgomery County
And I know,
issues, they were-
you, Don, as the impartial
Marilyn-
host.
I just hate to see Marilyn Lasters.
Well,
which
that's going to be
seems
my
to happen
final
where
word.
General Assembly is.
Yeah, Montgomery County was not, the new people were not there to hear what the big topics in Montgomery County are now. So
I just found
That
that
was
strange.
it.
Did you find that strange?
I thought it was pretty much as usual.
I think Dawn found it
I
strange.
found it strange, but what's not strange is our next guest, Fred Evans. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be
So
here.
we're talking about the state's issues. Now, here in Rockville, the county government, both the council and then as well as the executive branch, the county executive, the Board of Education, lots of new people.
Yeah, it's an interesting makeup. The school board only has two new members, Carla Silvestri and Brenda Wolf.
Right.
But there are the makeup is seven women,
Right.
and the student member is a female. So there are 8 women on the school board.
Right.
And on the county council, you have 8 men and 1 woman, who's the Nancy Novato, who spoke today.
Do you see a substantive or some differences in how they're going to be approaching the issues?
Oh,
here
I
between the
I
genders?
really don't get a sense of that. I note them as all being cautioned. I don't see any new innovative ideas necessarily coming out. What we're getting back to education, what we're going to have to look at is the infamous Kerwin Commission, which is going to be making its
What
recommendations.
is that? What is the Kerwin Commission? Oh, in about 10 seconds.
The Kerwin Commission he was former president of University of Maryland. They looked at all the issues affecting education in the state of Maryland,
Right.
and have made recommendations which could be in the billions of dollars, of course, in terms
of how the state money goes.
of how the state money is going to be spent. And they focused on issues like, for instance, a big one was early childhood
Okay.
education.
But the concern in Montgomery County is that because the entire state relies so much on Montgomery County for the funding, that it may actually cause an effect of reducing the amount of monies that Montgomery County has from the state to use for its education system.
That was a theme today, once again, at the Committee for Montgomery
Sure.
breakfast, that are we going to be the cash cow for the rest of the state? And that's something we've been discussing as long as I've been here in
Because a lot
Montgomery
of
County.
discussion, we come back, and Linna, you've participated in these discussions, and Fred through the years, is that it becomes a double whammy.
Yep.
We're asked to do more for the rest of the state, while at the same time the percentage of monies coming back to Montgomery County reduces. So we're more state taxes, and then we're having to make it up with county budgets.
And the reason why the Committee for Montgomery was established, 20, 25 years ago, was because the view was the legislators from Montgomery County did not support Montgomery County enough. And this committee was formed to try to bring them together and say, these are what our issues are.
Well,
You have
it's
to
difficult.
support us.
And if you step out of this county, and I do that in my day job as an attorney, and you go to the other counties and they, oh, you're from Montgomery County. I mean, it is a stigma that we are rich, that we have everything,
And we're
we don't
perceived-
have poverty, we can,
Yeah. Sure.
and we're too greedy. And so it really is interesting when you're in Annapolis or in Baltimore or anywhere else that we have there's a negative stigma towards us for being in Montgomery County without taking into consideration the benefits that we have provided and continue to
As well as the poverty. There's a lot of poverty in this
Yeah.
community.
No,
No,
that
and that's what I'm
goes up
saying.
with the city of
They-
Baltimore.
They act like there's no poverty in Montgomery County.
And again, that's
what's-
why these 10 people not being there this morning.
Getting
is
back to the
interesting.
new council and the school board, they're going to have to deal with those issues on a day-to-day basis in terms of how they fund the schools. Early childhood education is a gigantic topic, especially when related to poverty. When kids come into school, as mentioned today, a lot of times a year or two behind, so to speak, and how do we help them make up that loss of
And with that too, Fred, and this is how will the tight job market impact getting quality individuals into what are really new positions in early childhood development? Do we? I mean, that's something that's we're looking
Well, I
at.
mean,
that's
think-
part of the Kerwin Commission also. What kind of salaries are
Can
we going to
provide
provide
for these sorts of jobs? Where?
for
we get
teachers, for students?
So it's
I
not
mean,
just glorified babysitters, but it's people who are
oh
actually
yeah,
getting
these,
in.
these are people who are trained and certified.
And it's interesting. That's Nancy Navarro's, where her roots were. It was early childhood education and how you provide, especially for the poorest children, the non-English speaking children, that they're getting that early education.
We've got about 45 seconds left.
I think what's going to be interesting, we have a new county executive, which you mentioned. He spoke today on issues he was interested in. Obviously, transportation, education. We've already mentioned
He's
that.
such a policy wonk, isn't he? Because he really was going through a policy wonk.
Yeah,
Not
we're
a
going
typical political
it's going to be
speech.
interesting to see how he works with his former council members and the 4 new council members because of obviously term limits, and it'll be an interesting watch.
Well, the question I think a lot of people, will he be the 10th county council member like the Neil Potter model, or is he going to be a strong executive that Duncan brought in that Leggett has continued on? Which, which will we see?
We'll see.
It is going to be
Have no
interesting.
prediction.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. Well, listen, Fred, thank you very much.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to continuing on with these. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Julie, welcome, Serving Together. You know, I think for all of us who've gotten to know Serving Together through the years, just great respect for what you all are doing. And you've got some exciting news about how you're interacting with other organizations around the country.
We do, thank you. Yeah, so yesterday was actually our 6-month anniversary of launching a partnership with the Institute for Veterans and Military Families out of Syracuse University. We aligned with that program to become the National Capital Region's America Serves program. And what that means, in a nutshell, is that we are using a database and a network to provide services and connect veterans and their families to resources in the community. But what it also means is that we are one of 16 America Serves coordination centers across the country. So our veteran population tends to be somewhat transient. So if we have people who are perhaps getting out of the service in North Carolina and they're planning to come up here, we can be connected through the network. The North Carolina America Serves can connect to our current, our local one.
So much of what you do is a veteran who's in need contacts you because it's just, there's so many different services, so many different needs. It's really tough to navigate, and you provide that navigation.
We do. So we are now serving as like the coordination center. Think of the air traffic control person for the network here locally. And we have providers throughout Montgomery, Frederick, Prince George's, several counties in Northern Virginia and the district who are now part of this network. We use a software to connect each other and do referrals over that software, and it provides transparency. So if you were to refer a veteran to me and you wanted to know how that veteran was doing, you could look on the network and track that person's progress and make sure that that person was connected to the services.
And I imagine that's great for avoid people falling through the cracks.
It
because
is.
that seems to be one of the biggest problems.
Absolutely. And sometimes when people come to you for services, you give them a phone number, you're not sure if they made that phone call. And sometimes, let's say it's a behavioral health thing or a suicide ideation, that's really necessary that that person gets connected to that resource. And to leave it on that veteran to do it, it maybe isn't always the best option. To be able to help that veteran get to that resource and know that that happened and see the progress and see what the outcome was, just really is increasing our ability to serve.
What do you find, maybe you can't, maybe there's not one, what's the greatest need?
So the top 3 needs that we have seen since launching the network, and this is true of before, we've been around for 7 years, so we've seen this, are employment is number 1, housing and shelter, number 2, and income supports are number 3. And what's interesting to note is that makes up 70% of the requests we get. So the next 4th request is 151 people requested income supports, 40 people requested the next one, which is benefits navigation. So that huge gap between the two, those top 3 make up 70% of the requests that we're seeing.
Take us through, navigate for us. Fred Evans is recently returned, or recently 10 years, retired, whatever, come out. And he's been in battle. He's got some issues, just having, running through his head and having trouble getting back in the swing of things. What kinds of things he calls you all? What would you do with Fred?
Sure. So our peer navigators would do an intake with Fred just to find out kind of what he needs, where he's at, also to get some pertinent information that will help us make the referral to the correct organization, because that's what we're really about, is getting the person to the right organization the first time.
So there's not that
there's
incredible frustration.
Exactly. So we would find out what Fred's needs are. And a lot of times someone will present with a need. Let's say Fred said, hey, I'm interested in getting into a different field. Do you have any opportunities for maybe internship or mentorship in employment? So we would connect you with an organization that provides that. But then, oh, by the way, he lets us know that I'm having an issue because my VA claim was denied, and I'm interested in doing an appeal, and I have no idea how to do that. So that's not why he called us, right? But as he's talking to the peer navigators, he expresses this. What we're able to do with this new network is to simultaneously make those referrals to different organizations and really to address the many needs of the person, and hopefully then make that person become, either if they aren't stable, stabilize them, or if they were stable and they were just looking to be connected, connect them to all of the things that they need.
When do you close the file? About a minute left.
Okay, we close the file when someone has been successfully referred, and the referring agency that the agency we referred to has accepted and said, yes, we are working with this veteran. They will then take that and continue to put notes into the system and let us know. But then it's closed.
It's exciting.
It is.
what you're doing. I told you ahead of time before the show that I run into people doing different things. I'm always talking about serving together. It's something I think we're all proud of. And now with this network, where do you see yourselves going? About 10 seconds. Where are we going next?
Where are we going next? Well, we are actually expanding a little bit, probably farther into Maryland. So we have a bigger reach into Maryland, so we're hoping to do that. But then just really building our network so that we have a lot of providers to provide all of the services that people come to us for. So that's where we're working on now.
Thank you for your work, and I wish you the best. And please, your colleagues as well.
Thank
Tell
you
them
so much.
thanks for us.
Appreciate it.
Happy holidays.
You too.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
I thought we were going to be talking only about being merry, but as I said in the opening, we really instead need to be very wary.
He's very proud of that.
I don't know how long or how many times you practiced that, but well done. Yes,
Why?
and what do you need to be weary about is the question.
Thank you for
right?
asking and answering the same your question there.
So that is, the amount of commercials and advertising and marketing that goes into the season is.
Well, let's go through. Forget about the brainwashing.
Okay.
We've got. I mean, there's interest. There's people who are. There's new ways of getting interest that get you hooked. There are people looking over your shoulder for credit card information. Go through these things real quick for us.
So the number one that you need to watch out for is when you go to buy. Good examples in electronics. Big TV. You want the big TV, and they tell you, well, we can give you financing And the first 6 months, year, no interest, and then there's interest. And so the idea, if you're going to take advantage of one of those opportunities, is to pay it before the interest hits, because once that interest hits, you're going to be paying that TV 1 or 2, 3 times, right? So, and so people are lured in to buying things that they don't have the money for.
But it's not just the store credit, because we're hearing more and more about Silicon Valley companies getting involved
They're
for all kinds across
I mean,
the
a lot
board.
of what do you call investments are now doing investments of small loans. That's
right.
really
So it's an
a
$800
big,
loan, a $1,000 loan.
30% interest, I'm
and
hearing.
then you group them
Easy.
all together, and you've got an incredible interest-bearing document. that
Because
you-
most
for
people will
investment.
not pay it off by the time the interest hits.
Right.
So if you're talking about 30%, I mean, that's even more than the credit cards.
Right.
And so that is taking advantage of the consumer, and the consumer allowing themselves to be taken advantage of, because it's all about getting that
So
TV
joy
in their
now,
hands.
incredible pain later with these interests. What about the credit card
So
issues?
the credit card, this season, people are always worried, is someone going to steal my purse, or that kind of thing, and take your credit cards. They don't necessarily have to do that. There are scanners. They walk through the mall and they swipe up all the credit card numbers. There's always that
How does that
hacking
work?
and
Tell me about that
identity.
scanner. What's a scanner?
It's a device that they hold
Right.
that looks like a cell phone, or you wouldn't even pick up on it unless you're looking for it. And they'll walk through the mall with it at waist level, a little bit lower, where naturally a woman's purse or a man's wallet would be. And if it doesn't have electronic protection, it will, from the magnetic strips, pick up all of the information on the credit cards. And then
Incredible.
they will use those numbers to
Sure.
make money, or use them to buy things, or whatever it is that they're
But there's
scheme is.
but there's also a non-IT
oh yeah
issue that you've got too, that we were talking about, in terms of just people.
right. So
card is
you
out.
have the sophisticated
Right.
and you have the unsophisticated, where everyone's got their phones. So if someone back in the day were to take out a camera and take your picture while you're transacting, you'd be like, what are you doing? But you could have a cell phone up and they have no idea that you're either videoing or picturing their card. And basically all you need is the information on the front of the card, and if the person's manipulating it, you can see the back of the card. Then at that point you would be able to use the number online and go shopping. So the moral of this story is, be very aware, check your credit card statements, your bank statements, report any activity that you do not recall or do not know what it is. Don't get into the spending spree. Plan out the big purchases. If this is the time of year, or on Thanksgiving, Black Friday, you take advantage of the deals, great. But do it in a very deliberate manner, so that and you've planned for it and you have the money for it, because money doesn't grow on trees. You're not going to be able to, come
Right,
up
and
with
I
it.
have to say, I do think that people don't realize. I told an anecdote about my very first client in legal services was someone who had taken out a loan from Sears to buy furniture, and when he won, he celebrated by going out and buying a barbecue that was
Right.
incredibly expensive.
Right.
So he was not thinking
And there's
about
there's a
how
level
you-
of addiction
how
in
you do it.
shopping, which would be a totally different show about the
Yeah, and
shopaholics.
this was 40 years ago.
Right. So there's people that they feel.
Got about
and
a
I
minute
have to
left,
say,
a little less than
this
a
is
minute.
not just about middle class or the poor. The very rich do this too, and they find themselves in trouble too, because they overspend, and that's the problem. People are spending above and beyond their
More
means.
than
Sure.
one thing.
Would you say, so for, let's say, someone who is struggling a little bit but wants to make a purchase, is there a safer option for a loan or that type of thing? I mean,
Save up your money,
30
and then
seconds.
once you have it, buy the product. That's what I'm saying. If you're more deliberate, if you've been saving since July to buy that TV
Right.
on Black Friday or in the Christmas time when the sales are big, that's great. Do
some
it.
stores still do layaway. I mean,
Yeah,
I
good
bet
old
there are
I remember
stores
that
that do
layaway,
layaway, and that
you
was
know?
the great thing about layaways. It's kind of fallen off a little bit, but there are stores that still have them,
Yeah.
and they're awesome.
Delayed gratification.
Well,
Such
not
a
only that,
depression
but
era
you know
thing.
that when you buy it and you get it, you don't
Okay.
have a debt.
That's true.
And we have a debt to you,
Oh, thank
and
you.
I have a debt to all of you for joining me today, and for all of you in the viewing audience for joining all of us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Moores, and for a final time, I invite you to join us next week at this very same time.